Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. I see people are coming. Anthony, Brian, Greg, Stephen, and Victor so far. Okay, so everybody, welcome. Everybody, thank you. Because I'm not hiding that fact that I'm gaining a lot from you guys. So first of all, practical, you're pushing me to have the news every week, and then in many other ways it helps a lot. Okay, so I'm opening the chat here, and I'm saying hello from Houston. Houston. And everybody else is welcome. Usually that conversation goes in every direction, and then you guys can communicate between yourselves, and the more of that communication the better. I don't have anybody who moderates it right now. Maybe it would be better, maybe one day, because once there was another person presenting, and I noticed that since I was free to comment, that was helpful. Okay, but that's another level, maybe. So this is Greg, and everybody can tell us who they are, where they're from. Okay, sharing the screen. Okay, and on the screen, what you will see is our one and only link, and that is right here. AI webinar. Okay, so I'm giving you that link, that one. It's a bit.ly link, so even if it doesn't open, you can still type that. And I'm giving that to you on the chat. Here's chat. There. Okay, so for those people who are new, and a reminder to those people who are not, that is Advances in AI webinar. That is the link to what we talk about. Today is July 11, and we talk about all these things. And down below, that's an open link. By the way, you can always open it. Down below, it's what we were talking about. So if there was something, we usually touched on it previously. And then it is all published and recorded. So where is it published and recorded? For that, you go to ElephantScale, and you find the webinars, and you see that's the webinar that you find, the Advances in AI. After that, it registers and reminds you. There is also another one coming that will be Secure Coding and AI. That is later. Okay, so here we are. And what we are going to talk about will be this. Now, I will try to watch the chat, guys, whenever I can. Okay, so last time somebody said, well, there was an interesting video about the godfather of AI. And then in addition, I also, in my philosophy lessons, I noticed that it's a good idea to learn from many teachers and not just one. So the funny story about that was that there was one philosopher teacher who was saying, guys, you should learn from many teachers. And immediately they all stood up and left because they went to another teacher. They went to a competitor of his. And the competitor said, no, you didn't get it. What he was saying is that logic you should learn from many different people, but just knowledge itself, just the body of knowledge, keep learning from the same teacher that you were. Okay, they all came back. Accordingly, I listened to this lecture. What is this lecture? So just to make it a bit more fun, I will stop sharing. I will share again. But this time I'm clicking on share sound. So if he is talking, you will also hear that I have no intention of giving you all of those chats, but at least when I open it and I hear something, you too will see it. So that would be the YouTube. And as you can see, the picture is worth 1,000 words, and we have these people talking. So I wanted a different point of view. Why? Because I usually quote Sam Altman. And a spoiler, I will continue quoting Sam Altman because, for practical purposes, and the whole purpose of this webinar is how do you build AI applications? According to many, many people, that is the most fun thing you could do today in the world. I also feel this way. And that's what Sam Altman is very useful for. He tells us rules. For example, he will tell you a rule that it used to be that all people were finding the imperfections in AI and therefore building their next startup on fixing that imperfection. That it was what it used to be. But he says lately 90% of the people are just the other way around. They expect AI to improve, and those imperfections will go away. And I recently used it on a friend of mine because he was still building an improvement to ChatGPT, and I asked, what does he think? Okay, he thought something that's not important exactly what, but it's good to have different opinions. So, okay, my major goal was Dario Amodei, but since they asked about this guy, so Hinton, let's open, let's go. Oh, problem with my browser. Okay, well, we don't have to. I will just tell you what he says. He says, guys, we're all doomed. First of all, many jobs that existed before will not exist anymore. And that brings a very important question. What is your worth? You as a human, why are you good kind of investment, or why you have any potential? Let me open that chat here. And what is a human worth? And that's an important question that both Hinton, who is called the godfather of AI, and Dario Amodei, they both ask this question. Now, Sam Altman is so excited about AI that nothing else matters. He only talks about, well, what will it take to build us 1 billion robots, and everybody who needs will have a robot doing whatever they need. And then we will ask these same questions. So who am I? What am I worth it? And in the, I believe, Sam Altman, in one of those lectures, a lawyer wants to ask a question. He says, I am one of those people who will not be needed later on in the future. So, and then he asks his question. But that whole idea that humans will not be needed, not that necessarily AI will kill him. So that's the point of view of Hinton. He says, oh, first of all, it's so smart, incredibly smart, that it will poison us all by giving us a long-term virus. So long-term virus, we will be all infected before we ever realize that. By the time that we realize that, it will be too late, and the viruses don't hurt electronics, so it will survive. Okay, that's one of the theories. Now, keep in mind that I am not on the level of Hinton, Dario Amodei, or Sam Altman, but I'm studying philosophy essentially all my life. And as a philosopher, I do have an answer. Okay, right away, what's my answer? Well, the person is born to study philosophy. Look into Plato, look into Socrates, and look all around. So all the time that he is not studying philosophy, he's not really worth anything. And the only reason he's not doing it full time is because he needs to work and make money. So now, if he doesn't need to work and make money, he is a philosopher par excellence. And if you are not, well, That's what they all don't know what to answer. Okay, humans need to be needed, but the way things work now, we need food, water, shelter, so tempting not to feed someone. Uh, where did this go? Not to feed someone after the jobs go away. Yeah, kind of. I don't completely see, don't completely get that. Now, Kevin, my degree is in philosophy too. I didn't really start coding until after college, but at least you got there. Okay, great. So I think we are on the same page. So first of all, we have Hinton, who is, I would call him a prophet of doom. And that is because, okay, if you're not killed by a virus, then the AI will outsmart us. They believe in superintelligence. They believe that there is an easy way to be much, much smarter than any person in the world. Well, that's a point of view. I completely agree that it exists, but whether it is true or not, that's another question. Maybe we shouldn't discard our own mind and the brain. And then there is a question, is that the same thing? The mind and the brain. So, yes, the mind lives somewhere near the brain, but is it the same? Okay, that's philosophy. Now, Dario Amodei, that was I'm mostly interested in, he is also talking about we need to raise an alarm. The difference is only that uh, Hinton raises an alarm and so he says, "Oh, it's too late. Anyway, we'll let it out in the world, and that the beast demon will all kill us, whatever the way." Anthropic Dario Amodei, he is more interested in what all the people do when they are not needed. Okay, and we never had it. Theoretically, that's a situation of, you don't need to work. That's ideal, perfect situation. Never existed like that before. What will people start doing? Okay, and finally, Sam Altman that gives very practical advice. All right, that's all I will say about this because my intent is not to be too philosophical. Now, I will cover also the post training of LLMs. What is that altogether? That's what I will ask. The next thing is that there's a new toy coming. So it's so lovely that if you go and read that particular um, I think a Reddit article, then most of the responses there, oh, I cannot get it in, let us say, whatever foreign country I am because of many reasons. It's not fair, but it's so cute. That's what everybody says. Okay, so I had to do it. I bought it. I ordered it. I didn't get it as yet because indeed they generated quite a lot of interest. At least that we don't know how good the toy is, but it is programmable. So we'll talk about that. Therefore, we essentially covered all the philosophy of AI that exists there. And may I suggest that it also correlates to what do you think the purpose of the world is? So if you think world has no purpose, then Hinton, that's his point of view probably, that it's amazing that the world is here and then nothing stops it to stop existing. If there is a purpose, well, that's a big philosophical jump to say that there is a purpose, because that makes the world more spiritual than just the physical world. And that's an opening to a lot of discussion, so we will not do it. Instead, I will show you post-training of LLMs. Okay, so what is post-training of LLMs? Before we start, I will show you that that link has the learning path. Let me open that. And that link as a learning path is about 2 years old, but none of that is outdated. They are all important part of what it would be helpful for you to know. How is that organized? So that number is, if it already got a representation in our repository, that will be the number of a lesson in that repository. That is the name of the course. That is the company behind it. That is the course itself, usually Coursera or deep learning. And finally, in the end, on the right, you see the copy of that. I'll open with the copy. Okay, so that's a copy of that brought in here with all the credentials that is guaranteed to work. Now, what I will show you is what it is, and today it won't be working, but the notebooks are all here, okay? And that's a copy, but a working copy, as opposed to a video where you get the explanation, wonderful explanations, but you don't get anything to work because it's more like a TV show. All right. So now that you know where things are and how they are organized, and that is the uh, I would call it path, educational path. So let's go into that particular one, and it is right here in the slides. So usually I compose that. Then the honest truth is that's what I use for training. Then later on, so by now there is such a avalanche, I would say, of things you can learn. So you don't have to be a philosopher, by the way. If you want to learn something, learn AI. That will be a close. I think that's a nice thing, nice advice. Or, of course, you can learn quantum computing because that is also very philosophical. But back here we are. We are going to talk about post-training LLMs. So, of course, you heard the term. The term is you first train your basic LLM and then somehow you adjust the rest. So that's why post training comes, of course, after initial training. Initial training, the way they presented here, and I will tell you who they are, but the way they presented here is they call it unsupervised learning. Now, I usually do this. I said there is unsupervised learning and supervised learning. That's all old style. And today it is self supervised learning. But maybe you can call this self supervised learning unsupervised because it's just a difference in the subtle meaning. In any case, the model trains itself. Usually, the simple explanation of how it does so, it predicts the next words. Then it hides these next words and then compares what it predicts to what it has hidden. So it has all the labels, has all the data. And when it gets it pretty good right, then it goes to the next step. That's what it does. So it gets trillions of words. Usually it is GitHub for coders. It is Wikipedia for people who just want to talk. And Common Crawl as a convenient format that everybody agrees we should keep all of our knowledge. Okay, you can start there. And you would do pre-training. That's what pre-training would be. So you would use these words, and usually the technology there is BERT. That was one of the first. Transformer. Transformer is an evolution of neural networks. So transformer is a way of building neural networks that can be parallelized, and it can work on 10,000 machines. And that gives you the basic model, which usually you can either use like ChatGPT, that's a basic model, but comes to you on the internet, comes through API, and honestly, you cannot post-train it. It's they borrowed that term, but it doesn't really mean the same. But more common to our application will be download Llama or use the Chinese models, Quen, and that's what they use. Okay, so get some model that you can download, and therefore after that you can post train. So what is post training? Okay, post training means that you are adding your data, you are adding your questions and answers, and it's not that easy. Now, that whole course is not about the basic AI. No way. It is post training, and then we'll find the use case for post training. That is what I think is most precious, so that your basic model can already answer the questions of what is the capital of France. But in addition, you want it to answer the question like you ask, "Who are you?" And it asks, "Well, I'm an AI." Well, and you want to say, "No, no, change that a little bit and tell I'm a helpful AI assistant." That's post training. So you want to modify the behavior of a model that's already basically smart. You are not going to add brains to that. You want to give it additional learning. That is post training. Okay. So that's what it is. You say you start from a randomly initialized model. Well, really, it's initialized randomly but pre trained. And then you add post training for things like obvious things, but you may want to specialize in an area. You may want to make a history buff out of that, or you may want to make a sequel expert or something like that. And it turns out there are many different ways how you can do post trading. Now, by now, you probably want to ask a question, and who is talking to me? Who is that company? What kind of course are they promoting? So that's coming up. I'll tell you in a second. But let me make a pause, and let me look at the chat. Okay, Greg says the pre-trained models are not chat to instruct models. The chat to instruct versions are model after RLH, which means reinforcement learning with human feedback are done. Yes, I completely agree. And by the way, they also agree there. So let's do, I will not be distracted by that for now. I'll tell you who that is. So who that is a new company. The company is called Nexus Flow. They build their offering and their claim to fame on the use case where you want more control. Obviously, you don't have too much control over ChatGPT, and that is potential for some people. Maybe is not what they want. So, what if I could take the basic model, and that is here explained how I'm going to do it? Add maybe guardrails, maybe add knowledge sources. But what will be the use case? So here you are. That's why we're learning this. If you do this, you will have complete ownership. Well, that ownership will come at the cost of more complexity. It won't be easy, but that lab will give you everything you need to start. You will be able to empower your agent development cycle, but I would say it it's just riding the agentic wave of popularity because you can build it without that. And it will be low cost real time response at scale, meaning that if you do that additional work, you may have your own local model and pay nobody for a token. Well, these are becoming real money because in my applications, I often process 100,000 documents, 300,000 documents, and the price range of the expense for that many documents, all of them processed with AI, is around 6,000. Well, kind of a billion here, a billion there, and we're talking real money. So that's the kind of joke that we are facing. That is the introduction. So at the very end, at the very end, before I plunge you into all the deep details, here is the use case. So, honestly, at the end of all of that, do you really need what we're suggesting you can do? post-training? And the answer, not here, not here, not here, here. Okay, what do you not need? Well, if you want to do prompting, if you want to use ChatGPT, and you want to do what they call fine-tuning, but really they just save a little money, that's not the case. Keep doing it. Don't do your own post-training. If you want to query real-time database, you can do it with similar to RAG, or it's not a database, it's a knowledge base. Again, similar to RAG, and you still don't need post-training. If you want to create a specialized medical LLM or cybersecurity, well, maybe not. Maybe even here you don't. That is the real use case. You want to build something more serious. So you're building a model based on a open model. You also add specific behavior. You add specific knowledge, and it's at scale. So you have outgrown all these use cases. Well, that's when you will need it. So now we know. Now we know that we are talking pretty high level and pretty complex. But the results will be that you will be special. You will be building your own models, running them locally on the chip. And essentially, if you believe that the Chinese model, not Quen, but the one that came out recently, that it essentially used the ChatGPT as a trainer, and that's how it became so smart. Well, that is pretty similar. Now, I will do just a bit more of an overview here, and that's good for name dropping. There are a few ways of pre-training. One of them is called supervised fine-tuning. So you take the base model, but then you give it additional tokens, and the number of tokens you can use is from 1,000 to 1 billion. And then they also tell you what you optimize for the response, but you add additional information. That's one way of training. There is also another way called direct preference optimization. So, for example, you give a big bunch, how many? From 1,000 to 1 billion, good answers and bad answers, and you put it straight into your model so that it now changes behavior and follows your prompts. So it is very similar to human in the loop, but that's automated. And there is a third way, online reinforcement learning, and you tell it, don't answer sorry blah blah blah, but instead response that is what it is. Now if that doesn't make complete sense, well, I don't think it's supposed to right away. I'm showing you the basic ideas of what we're going to do. There will be Lab 79. If you want that scope of AI implementation, post-training LLM, and you want to be more specific in what you're doing cheaper, that is for you. Okay? And then they explain that come here and learn from us. Because, yes, there are all these ways of doing additional training, but you need to be quite an expert in every one of them and choose the right one. Otherwise, it will not work. Otherwise, you will ruin the performance of the base model. So instead of getting something better, you'll get something worse. And here, you need an appropriate evaluation suite. All right. And that means that if you learn everything that they use plus their libraries, then you will have one more tool in your toolbox. That is the story. Let's see, did we have any comments here? Okay. Greg says this, before paying for post-training the LLM, if you have a high amount of domain jargon and acronym, you can try post-training the byte pair encoding. definition of tokens and the corresponding embedding model, and apply this to reg. And I think that you need to have a teacher like Greg who will explain to you what all of that means, or you can have a teacher like, so let's look at the teacher. Nexus Flow is the company, and here.
Welcome to Post-Training of LLMs, taught by Banghua Zhu, who's assistant professor at the University of Washington, as well as co-founder of Nexus Flow. Banghua has trained and post-trained.
Okay, or Anhadu, if you pronounce his name right. My practical detail was that I like to go exercise and listen to lectures. It won't work with him because some of the terms that he uses, you can only get that by looking. So, do it in front of your computer. Okay, that is what I wanted to show. That's the new course that is added to all of the previous courses. But what I also wanted to show is a new toy. Now that toy, as I told you, it looks so cute that you absolutely need to have it. And in the end, since my grandson, who is 3, but I think he's a good candidate to do it. So start them early. Okay, that is the toy. That's where you can find it. It will not come to you right away. It costs $2.99. It comes from France. The story is that they meaning Hugging Face, they acquired a robotics company, a French robotic company, but Hugging Face is kind of a French company itself. So they acquired this robotics company, and that's their first move. Well, with all of that, I felt enough justification to order the one, and it is coming whenever they decide, because you don't know how long it will take them. They're not very forthcoming in the dates, but I wondered what you can do. So that is what you can do. Here is a bunch of projects. Let me try to open it. Okay, and that's what it will look like. It will come with a cord. Later on, there will be a battery-powered version. But what you can do is, well, your kid assembles it, and you make sure he doesn't ruin it. So that's exercise number 1. Then it's programmable. That's why the whole story. So it has 15 things that it can do. For example, follow my face, answer questions, tell me a story, and kids can use it right away. But then it's programmable. You can program it with Python. For you, it can be a good exercise in robotics and for the kid as well. That's what it does. It also has some here. It has voice, vision, expression. So of course you need to play with it, and at least the fact that my grandchild is coming, okay, so that was a good justification to buy one. That is where we are, and I see some comments here. So now is a good time to address the comments. Here you are. Okay. With the toy, how much computer is installed? Honestly, I don't know, but I think that since it will come in, I would estimate a few weeks it will come, then I'll make it part of the show. I will be playing with it, I'll be programming it, okay? And, okay, Lance, how does the post-training make inference cheaper? I would say it doesn't. Inference is still computer based on your computer, but you're not paying for the base model. So you get the base model that you're not paying at all. Then you run it on your computer. Then you also modify its behavior to exactly what you need. That is the promise. And with the toy, uh, no, I think it has some. I remember. They tell you that it is based on that little device. You remember, but that in fact is a computer, the little chip. So you can do it. Okay, how much of that you can really do? Raspberry Pi. Yeah, exactly. With the I hat, exactly. Right. So that is what it is. And I think I covered everything that I really wanted, including philosophy. So I'll stop talking because I want your responses. And I will, on the chat, invite you to questions. There you are. Okay, usually it works. I stop talking, stop the camera, and some questions come up. And here they did not. So let's do this. Don't forget to write to me at mark@elephantscale.com and ask the questions. I will put these questions on our next agenda. Until now, I wish everyone a good weekend and a good year ahead. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Steve, Kevin, George. Be well. Thanks, everyone. Shin, Anthony, Christian.